The Coach Rocky Long Show. John Quintero with you, 7 to 8 tonight, each and every Wednesday, live from Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill in the Grossmont Center. And following Coach's show, we will get into my general talk show from 8 to 9 this evening. And I will tell you, coming up at 8:30 tonight, the former USD head coach, now San Jose State Spartan head coach Ron Carragher, going to join me on the program at 8:30 tonight. But we're going to kind of kick around last week's 35-30 victory by the Aztecs over New Mexico at Qualcomm Stadium. Give you a little preview of what's coming up on Saturday night at Spartan Stadium. Late start for the Aztecs. Kickoff scheduled for 7:34, and the game will be heard live on both the Mighty 1090 and the Walrus 105.7. Well, Coach Long, I was going to start off tonight when I watched the game the other night. I'm going to say, can your football team do anything easy? Always right down to the wire.
Well, we're trying to develop a fan base, you know, and when you develop a fan base, you want to keep them there from the start of the game to the end of the game. So we're doing that on purpose. No, I wish we weren't doing that on purpose. The other night, our offense played good enough that the game should have been over probably by the end of the third quarter, and we played okay on defense in the first half and did a couple good things on defense in the second half. But for some reason, we didn't play good enough to keep them out of the end zone enough so that our offense had to keep moving the ball and scoring enough points to put the game away. You know,
last week when you and I talked both on the air and off the air, you told me, hey, this New Mexico team, they got some talent. They were 3-5 coming in. They hadn't won a conference game. You said this is not a bad football team, and they're making progress. And offensively, they run the triple option. They got that young kid Gibson who got outside a couple of times. I mean, offensively, they did some good things. And you could on the other say, well, we didn't do this defensively, but got to give them a little credit. They came in and gave you guys a heck of a ball game.
They did, and I appreciate you bringing that up because a lot of people talk to you after a game. Even when you win, it's surprising because coaches know how hard it is to win, and players know how hard it is to win. But a lot of times when you win and the game's closer than people perceived it was going to be going into the game, it's all about what you didn't do, and you don't always give the opponent the credit they deserve. I mean, there's two football teams out there, and both football teams want to win. And both football teams are doing everything they can to win. And like you said, New Mexico runs a very unusual offense. They run the triple option out of the pistol. They ran a brand new play that we hadn't practiced against or hadn't seen all year long on film. It kind of put us on our heels a little bit, and it led to some guys maybe overreacting the way they shouldn't overreact, and we got outflanked several times. And on offense, they're all pretty good anyway. I mean, they're the third leading rushing team in the country, not just in our league now. They're the third leading rushing team in the country, and that includes all the academies that run the Wishbone. They're averaging a little bit over 30 points a game, and that's not just against us now. I mean, that's everybody they've played up to us. And so on offense, you give them credit because they know what they're doing with their offense. They run it very well, and it's unusual for the defense to stop. And they get a bunch of yards against everybody. So I was a little disappointed on how many points we gave up. Not so much disappointed in the yardage we gave up because we gave 100 less yards than their normal average. But I was a little disappointed in the points we gave up. But you got to give the opponent credit now. There's two teams out there trying to win.
Well, I think, when you take a look at those 30 points they put up, that's 3 under their average. They were averaging 33 points coming into that ball game. Let's talk about Adam Moema. This is the guy that I think we were all expecting to see, a guy that I know that you were expecting to see early in the year, reading all the preseason Streets and Smith and Athlons and all the magazines saying, hey, this guy's the best running back in the conference. And right now he's starting to prove it.
Well, he had a great night, and I think you saw a healthy Adam Moema, and you saw him at his best. But don't ever forget that running backs don't look like that unless somebody's opening a hole for him. Now, he did once he got through the hole, he did some wonderful things by making safeties miss and running through some people and juking some people where they didn't lay a hand on him. He did some wonderful things with the ball. But he had to have a lot of help to get started. And whenever a running back has 200 and something yards rushing, he's done a lot of good things, but the big boys up in front of him have done a lot of good things too.
There's no question about it. And that offensive line, I had Jordan Smith, your sophomore center, on the other night, and I said, yeah, I go, early in the year, Coach Long was putting you guys on notice to start get the job done. And he kind of just talked about the growth of the offensive line, and I think we've seen that as the season's gone on. Talk a little bit about Jordan, kind of an interesting guy. They look at him at about 280 pounds. That's kind of light nowadays for a college center. And talk a little bit about his 3 years here at San Diego State, because you were the guy, were one of the prime guys recruiting him.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's like a lot of the young guys on our team that have developed into pretty good players. He's going to get better and better and better because he's going to get bigger and stronger. And like you say, he's not very big. And, I mean, he's 6'3.5", probably 275 pounds. Isn't that amazing that a guy can be 6'3", 275, and you say he's not very big?
He's undersized.
Yeah. But most of the guys up there that nowadays are 300 pounds. Now, he plays center, and the center has to be as athletic as he is big and strong. And the more athletic a center is, he can get away with maybe not being quite as big and not be quite as strong, because he very seldom has to drive a guy off the ball. He's always position blocking him, or he's going by and working with another offensive lineman to get up to the next level where he can cut a linebacker. And the number one thing for Jordan as an offensive lineman is he's a very good athlete with a quick first step. He can stay on his feet and he can get to the second level. Now, as he gets bigger and stronger, obviously he'll be able to drive somebody out of there, but centers very seldom have to drive somebody out of the hole one-on-one.
Let's talk about the wide receiver, Ezel Ruffin. Boy, he is on a nice roll. The other night, a huge game once again, 7 catches, 165 yards, a 75-yard touchdown, a 24-yard touchdown catch. I mean, talk about a guy that's really kind of come into his own.
Well, see, there's another point about a guy working real hard and coaches working real hard with young people and them believing in what coaches are telling them and them trying to get it done in the weight room, in the classroom, and on the football field, and all of a sudden things start working like they're supposed to. Now, Ezel came to us as a very, very good athlete. Played a lot of different positions in high school. In fact, the first year he was with us, we tried him at running back. And that didn't fit his personality.
You're kind of smiling. Was he running a little bit high?
Well, he was one of those running backs that always wanted to bounce it outside and try to outrun you. Those kind of running backs don't make it at this level or the pro level because there's enough people that can run them down and chase them down. So we moved him out to wide receiver, and it was everything was kind of new to him, and he struggled for a couple years. But he kept after it, and he kept working, and Charles McDaniels, our receiver coach, kept working with him and did a great job of coaching him. And then this year he had a couple good games, and now he's a very good wide receiver with a lot of confidence. If you have a good athlete that knows his skill and he has confidence, guess what? You have things happen like Ezel's doing right now, and thank goodness he's doing it.
Defensively the other night, you gave up the points. You gave up 423 total yards, and New Mexico did a good job. They converted 5 of 10 third down opportunities, a 1-for-1 on fourth down. But defensively, was there one area, maybe one position or one player that you really thought stood out the other night?
Well, I think that it's almost every week. But when you play a triple option team, they're going to run you right out of the park. Like, if I remember right, BYU did to Texas early in the year when they had 580-something yards rushing and the quarterback had, I don't know how many the quarterback had. If you don't have a free safety that will run the alley, and what I mean run the alley is whenever you play a triple option team, the free safety, if the fullback pops, he's supposed to tackle the fullback for a 7 or 8 yard gain. If someone forgets to take the quarterback or misses the quarterback, he should tackle the quarterback for maybe a 4 or 5 yard gain. And then if they pitch the ball, he should be able to run the guy out of bounds before he scores a touchdown. And now that's a very, very difficult thing to do. Well, I'm going to tell you, Nat Berhe played extremely well. If he wouldn't have played so well, they might have had twice that much rushing and probably a whole bunch more points. And, I mean, he made a play that surprises me, that because we have really smart fans. Surprises me that people don't realize how big a play that was. when he stopped the 2-point conversion. And he did. If you watch it on film, and maybe you can see it on TV when people were watching TV, he sat there and kind of looked at the dive back, and the dive back didn't get it. And we had a guy on quarterback, okay, but he sat there and watched the quarterback in case the guy missed him. And then they pitched the ball, and he ran out there and tackled the guy for a 1-yard gain right before he crossed the end zone for a 2-point conversion. Would have made it 3 points, a 3-point difference instead of obviously a 5-point difference. So now all they have to do is kick a field goal to put it into overtime. And now he made it so now, thank goodness our offense went out there and scored another touchdown, but he made it so that they at least had to score a touchdown to beat us.
Philosophy-wise on the triple option, we talked with Bob Davey last week on the talk show, and he was just talking about when he took this job, he felt this gave him the best opportunity to compete fairly quickly, run the triple option. Coaching against the triple option, and we got a lot of coaches up and down the West Coast listening right now. Your philosophy on how to defense it? I mean, some coaches, they'll maybe slow play the quarterback a little bit. Other guys will say, hey, attack that quarterback, get the ball out of his hands. Your thoughts? Obviously, you got to take the fullback number one, then the quarterback, and then the pitch man. But how do you teach your guys to go after the quarterback? You kind of change the looks on him?
We do change the looks, and you said the key. And now I was a triple option quarterback now, so the key is.
So when you were at New Mexico, they figured with you at quarterback, they had a better chance to win running the triple option.
No, probably because we didn't have anybody could throw it. I mean, I couldn't throw it, and they couldn't catch it. So that's probably why we ran the triple option. But the key to stopping the triple option is, number one, do not let the dive back or the fullback in the wishbone, do not let the dive back have a big day. You cannot let the dive back have a big day, because if he's having a big day, everything works. So if you can take the dive back, number one, you have to take the dive back away. Now you determine on how you want to play the quarterback. If the quarterback is a great ball carrier, you have to give him a couple different looks. You have to give him a look where someone comes hard off the edge and hits him as quick as they can and make him pitch the ball quick. And then sometimes you have to come at him and jump up to the pitch and make him plant a foot and go back. And sometimes you slow play the quarterback. Their quarterback's a pretty good ball carrier, so you have to give them 2 or 3 different looks. And then when you pitch the ball, it depends on what they do on the outside, on how they block the outside. Sometimes they'll crack a safety, sometimes they'll arc a safety, so forth and so on. So my opinion is you stop the guy that carries the ball first, which is the dive back. Okay, you have to stop him. Now you have to make them deal the ball. The more they deal it, the more chances they have to make a mistake. And as long as the ball's going sideways, they're not going toward the end zone. So you have to either attack the quarterback and make them pitch it and try to run the pitch back down, or you slow play the quarterback, but you can't let them cut up the field. You got to keep the ball going sideways as long as you can keep it going sideways. And then when they finally pitch it, hopefully you're athletic enough to run out there and knock them out of bounds. Now, the pitch back got us a couple times.
Now, a lot of the coaches driving home right now, either high school coaches, varsity coaches, JV freshmen, or JC coaches, they probably learned a little something that they can put into play, maybe not tomorrow because tomorrow's a walkthrough, but maybe next week on Monday. So a good coaching point by the head coach of San Diego State, Rocky Long. And by the way, want to remind everyone right here at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill, each and every Wednesday, it's the official spot for the Aztecs Coaches Show. Coach Long here each and every Wednesday. And reminder, Hooley's is home to the famous corned beef tacos, other award-winning menu items. And on every Wednesday, right here in the Grossmont Center, Coach Long going to be here. I keep telling people, you got to come out and meet Rocky Long. I mean, he'll shake hands with you. He'll talk with you. I mean, not all Division I coaches are like that, Coach.
I don't know. Most of the ones I'm around are like that, but of course I'm not around the $5 million ones. So.
I think you're great. I think the people in the community really, really enjoy what you bring to the table here at San Diego State. When we come back, we're going to get some questions from the crowd tonight. Look forward to people stepping up to the mic. Open mic night here at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill. You got a question, Aztec question, college football question for Coach Long. We'll do that when we return here to Hooley's Irish Pub. This is the Rocky Long Show, heard only right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. All right. Pub, Coach John Quintero, Coach Rocky Long on a Wednesday night here at the Coaches Show. Again, every Wednesday night right here at Hooley's Irish Pub. Also, want to remind you, if you're interested in buying, selling, or leasing commercial property, Quality First Commercial is a full-service commercial real estate firm. You can visit the website at qualityfirstcommercial.com or QFC here for all your commercial real estate needs. And also want to remind everyone, there's going to be a huge ball game. Tickets available for the Aztecs' next home game coming up on Saturday, November 23rd, as the Aztecs welcome in conference rival Boise State. Kickoff that night going to be at 7:30. Tickets for the game start at only $16 to purchase tickets. Call 619-283-SDSU, or you can log on to GoAztecs.com. We're going to go, Coach, and get a question from our audience. Again, we'll also take phone calls tonight. San Diego, 858-457-1090. Our toll-free number, 877-792-1090. And again, the game on Saturday night at legendary Spartan Stadium. Going to get underway shortly after 7:30 on the Mighty 1090 and the Walrus 105.7. Of course, Ted Leitner, Kirk Morrison going to have the call for you. Let's go right out to the crowd tonight, and we'll hear from a gentleman. He's got a nice San Diego State football jersey on, or I should say hooded sweatshirt. Step to the mic, sir. State your name and your question for Coach Long.
Yeah, Coach. My name is John. Longtime Aztec fan. Been following you guys all season. Comment and a question. Comment is just wanted to thank you for instilling so much toughness in the program that wasn't here before you got here. It's been good for us locals to have something we can be proud of. But moving on to my question, do you think that the program or your players and your coaches are all starting to gel offensively with Coach Toledo's kind of new philosophy that he's brought in?
I think it's very obvious that our offense is improving, and that Coach Toledo has a much better feel for our personnel than maybe he did at the start of the season. And I think our players are much more comfortable with his scheme and how he's calling plays and how he sets up one play with another play and sets up plays for later on in the game. I think that it took a little while. I think that you notice that we're running more power plays and all that stuff now than we did early in the season. And what he does best, I think, is understand who the starting quarterback is and does what the starting quarterback does best and makes the quarterback feel comfortable. And when he feels comfortable, he can execute at a pretty successful rate and then keeps us in ball games. So obviously the offense is much, much better now than it was early in the season.
Very good question there. Let's talk a little bit about toughness. John brought up the point that you instill toughness into the program. How do you go about doing that when you take over a football program? You did it at New Mexico. I mean, you guys played some power football over there. I always go back to those offensive line. When I was calling the games, I used to be amazed at I don't know where you got some of those guys, but, man, they were tough, they were big, they were strong, and they liked to run block.
Well, first of all, I think there's a misperception out there that young people aren't the same as they used to be. And I think in a lot of cases that's true. And a lot of things they do is different than I remember when I was a kid and all those sort of things. But when it comes to athletics, if a player wants to be as good as he can be, you can require whatever you want of him if he believes that's going to make him a better athlete. And I think in football, no matter how we go to the spread and how many rules they put in about targeting and all those kind of things, I still think football is a tough man's game. You have to have an attitude to even walk out on that field. If you watch from the stands that have never been on the sidelines, come down and stand on the sidelines and watch how big and how strong and how fast those kids are that are running around and running into each other, most of the time almost full speed. It's not a game for the faint of heart. I mean, it's really not. Even in high school, I can remember, I'm going to tell you a quick story. When I finally got...
I like when you tell us quick stories.
Okay, when I first got done playing football, a friend of mine asked me if I would help him coach a high school team. So I coached the freshman high school team, and then he asked me if I wanted to stand on the sidelines at the varsity game. So I went to the varsity game, the first game I've ever watched from the sidelines, ever.
How old are you at this time?
I must be about 30 years old. 30 years old. And I first started coaching when I was about 30. And he asked me to stand on the sidelines at a high school game. I was scared to death standing on that sidelines. I had no idea. All those years I played, I had no idea that those people were running around that fast and running into each other that hard. When you play, you don't realize all that's going on. But ever since then, I've had a great respect for anybody that is tough enough to play the game of football. I'm sure it's the same for ice hockey and something like that. Of course, I never played that, but you have to be a tough-minded individual to even step on that field, because the things that go on between those sidelines is nothing but people trying to place their will on somebody else. And so they understand that. When they play the game, they understand that. So you just have to give them a forum to develop that toughness, and you have to demand certain things from them that they don't like. But they're willing to do it because they want to be good football players. So I think it's a very simple process if you have willing students. So most of our toughness comes from our strength program. Adam Hall, who used to play quarterback at San Diego State, is our strength coach. And he's with them because of rules. He's with our players a lot more than any of the football coaches are because of NCAA rules. He's with them all in the offseason, he's with them in the summer, and obviously he's with them during the season. And what we do in the weight room, besides getting bigger and stronger, we demand the toughness attitude in that, and that carries over to the football field.
You know, the question, and I think talking about weight programs, I think that's very important. When you guys are recruiting, will you talk to the high school players? Because not every high school has a dynamite weight program, and quite frankly, a lot of kids in high school, even if they have the ability to maybe take advantage of that, some people are allergic to the weight room. So when you know what I'm talking about here.
I know that.
So when you recruit, do you talk to these guys about what's expected of them as far as not just in the classroom and on the football field, but the commitment they have to make in the weight room to get better?
I can honestly say that we recruit probably a lot different than a lot of people do, because we tell them exactly what they're getting into, because we don't want them to show up and be shocked. You know, be shocked and it's not what they were told it was going to be, and then all of a sudden think they're being mistreated and want to go someplace else. So I'm sure we lose some recruits because we tell them exactly what's going to be expected of them when they get there. And the weight room is a big part of that. And lifting weights all year long. We lift weights twice a week during the season. Lifting weights all year long, in the off season, in the summer. So in recruiting, I think it's the only right way to do it in recruiting is to be totally honest on how your program is run. I don't think that is the case some places.
Well, some coaches, let's be honest, some coaches tell the recruits and their parents everything they want to hear, and then when that recruit shows up in August, all of a sudden the coach doesn't know the guy's name, and his position coach doesn't know who he is, and he feels like he's out in no man's land. Some coaches, and these are the guys that I've always felt that are never going to be in it for the long term because they're going to burn bridges. They're going to do whatever it takes to get a young man on campus, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out and the kid transfers. That's the last thing you want to do is recruit guys that start transferring out, and you have 2 or 3 or 4 guys transfer out. I mean, it just kills your program in any sport, let alone football.
Well, I think that there are some young men that even – I think the people transferring has increased dramatically over the last 10 years. And there's some people that go to a place and really understand what they're getting into, but when they get there, it's not – they can't handle it like they thought they could handle it. So I think there's good reasons for kids to transfer at times. If they're not going to be successful in the program and they honestly think they can be successful someplace else, they ought to transfer. But I think there's less of it. I think everybody has transfers, but I think there's less of it if you're honest with them in the recruiting process.
We're going to get to more questions. Also, we're going to get out. We'll get some phone calls. Anybody out there want to talk a little college football tonight with Coach Rocky Long? I wanted to ask you, it's been the big national story this week. And it's amazing. It's a very confusing story for me, the situation with the Miami Dolphins in the locker room. And you know, what goes on in the locker room should stay in the locker room. But this is a really, really bizarre story about the text messages and tweeting this kid. And, you know, Incognito's got a rap sheet longer than a lot of guys that are probably doing, 10 to 20 years in the prison right now. I mean, he got kicked out of Nebraska, got kicked out before he ever played a game at Oregon. He's bounced around the National Football League with all kinds of problems. I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, you were talking about how you let the players kind of handle the locker room, and you've got your group of veteran players that come in and talk with you on a regular basis. I mean, what do you make out of this? Because this is really a bizarre story.
Well, I can't really comment about it because I don't know the culture in an NFL locker room. I've never been in an NFL locker room. I played in Canadian League, and I was a coach in the Canadian League for a while, but I've never been in an NFL locker room in any kind of capacity, a coaching, player, or whatever. So I don't know the culture of the NFL and what happens in their locker room.
Let's talk about what happens in the Aztec locker room, or prior to that, the New Mexico locker room.
Well, I think first of all, you educate the young men in your program on what is expected, what you don't accept, what kind of behavior you don't accept, what kind of behavior you wish they exhibit, and what the penalty is if they don't exhibit that behavior. And then you have to believe in the leaders of your football team that they believe the same thing you do, and they execute your plan because they believe in the plan. Okay? We educate our players at the beginning of every semester about a whole lot of things. And one of them is hazing. We don't allow hazing in our program. The only guy that gets to haze our football players is me. and we do that by making all the rookies learn a fight song, and they have to get up in front of the team and sing the fight song in front of the other guys. And if they don't sing it good enough, they get to come back the next day and sing it again, and those sort of things. So any kind of hazing or initiation that we have is completely controlled by the coaches. And you got to trust the players in your locker room and the leaders in your locker room. If something is going on wrong in there, they come and tell you. And then you can re-educate your players on what you expect to happen. Now, we don't always play well, but we have great people, great kids in our program, or great young men in our program that have been raised the right way, and they know the difference between right and wrong. And if we have a couple that don't, the good guys are in charge. So the good guys teach the other ones what is accepted and not accepted. And if there's a real problem, they come to us. And then we continue to, I think young people all make mistakes, so you have to continue to give them chances and continue to educate them. But I don't understand the culture of an NFL locker room. I'm sorry.
What was it like in the Detroit Wheels locker room? Well, little arena ball.
Yeah, well, we got along really, really good because
you didn't think I knew that, did you?
No, most of the time we played without getting paid, so we got along just fine.
You played for the love of the game. We'll a little past the bottom of that. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll get to more questions for Coach Long. We're going to take a look at the San Jose State Spartans. Again, late night game on Saturday. Aztecs, San Jose State, they're coming in with a very nice 4-game winning streak. They're 4-1 in the Mountain West Conference, 5-3 overall. We'll take a look at Ron Carragher's squad and get to your phone calls as well. The Rocky Long Show, John Quintero, right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. Pub and Grill, and a reminder, not only is Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill here in the Grossmont Center, they got another fantastic restaurant in Rancho San Diego, and of course they also, as does Hooley's right here in Grossmont Center, have award-winning food, great draft and bottled beer selections, fantastic happy hour specials. You can click their website, Hooley's.com, for directions and more, and hopefully we'll see you out here next Wednesday night for the Aztecs Coaches Show with head coach Rocky Long. I wanted to ask you because I got invited to a signing party next Wednesday, and recruiting's always been big. Haven't done a lot of it when I was in college, Coach, and they're having a signing party at the Hall of Champions next Wednesday morning to where all the athletes in all the different sports can sign national letter of intents except football. In football, the players and the coaches and football programs have to wait until early February. Would you like to see an early signing date like they have for the other sports?
I would, and we do have one early signing date. You can sign junior college players in December if they can get into school in January. So we have a bit of an early signing date, but I don't see, and I've argued this with a lot of other coaches, I don't see the reason we don't have one. Kids are committing earlier and earlier and earlier. We're able to evaluate them easier and earlier and earlier and earlier because of technology. Now, what we don't get to do, if they don't make unofficial visits to your campus, is you don't get to really know them and their families as well as you should. So there would have to be some kind of variation of the recruiting calendar to allow us to be able to get to know them a little bit better before they actually sign. But I would say 50% of the kids are committed before recruiting really starts. And some of the schools are done recruiting in December by commitments. And there's no reason why those kids couldn't sign in December. And it actually clears up the picture for everybody that has not filled their numbers. You know, if you have a total of 25, you haven't, and you have 15 commitments, you still have 10 to find. Well, it clears it up for everybody else. It also clears it up for the kids that are trying to decide, or they want to go someplace and somebody is kind of slow playing them. They actually haven't offered them one, but they keep acting like they're going to offer them one.
They're keeping them in the old holding pattern.
Yeah, in case somebody they lose somebody late in recruiting, they can come back and get the kid. I don't think that's fair to the kid. I don't know the argument why we don't have an early signing date. So, yeah, I'm for an early signing date, but I'm sure someone else will tell me why that's not a good idea.
Now, is this something you guys talk about when you go to the National Coaches Convention?
We talk about it in head coaches meetings, and they bring it up all the time. And it's a slow process to change anything with football because there's so many players involved. Where the basketball coaches seem to be able to change things quickly. You know, they get things where they don't have to worry about how many times they text message a guy. They don't have to worry about how many times they call a guy. I mean, we can't text message, and we can only call them once a week until recruit. I mean, some of our rules are antiquated, and we have to keep so elaborate records on them so nobody believes you're cheating. And there's all kinds of ways to get around it if you want to. If you're one of those kind of guys that wants to get around it, you can get around it. So I don't, and I think football is moving that way. I mean, they just put in a rule where they've extended dead periods, and that's for coaches, because coaches are working 12 months a year now, and they've extended dead periods so that coaches can actually have a little time off. And I think that the text message thing is going to change. I think the phone call thing is going to change, and I think eventually we're going to get an early signing date.
You mentioned junior colleges can sign and be ready to go a second semester. How difficult is it to get junior college players to qualify nowadays to where they can come in at the semester?
Now it's a program issue, if you ask me. There are programs out there that do a great job of getting those kids ready to go after they've played 2 years of junior college football. Great job. Obviously, if a young man is a qualifier, and we can go through all those rules if you want, but if he's a qualifier...
I don't want to get a headache tonight,
yeah,
okay?
I know. If he's a qualifier out of high school, it's much easier to get him ready to transfer. If he's a non-qualifier out of high school, it's much harder. But a lot of junior college programs do a great job of getting them ready to go out early. Some of them don't. And the young people have to be concerned about what the rules are, too, so they know what they need to come out early. The guys that can play and come out early, they have a lot of choices. The guys that can play that are going to have to stay until the next August to be able to graduate or qualify, they don't have many people recruiting them.
Let's get to San Jose State. They started out struggling, new coaching staff. We know Coach Carragher very well. He's going to join me at 8:30 tonight here on the Mighty 1090. Good guy, did a very nice job at USD, 44-22 in 6 years, and shared 3 conference titles. Inherited a pretty good football team when Coach McIntyre left to take the Colorado job. Right now they're sitting at 5-3 overall. 4-1 in conference. They've won 4 straight. What are you seeing on tape offensively and defensively, and how have they turned this thing around?
Well, I mean, I know how they've turned it around. Number one, they have a lot of really good players that came back from last year's team. I think in most polls preseason they were ranked in the top 25 before the season started. There's always a transition period between coaches because coaches do things differently. Ron Carragher is a really good coach, but I'm sure he does things differently than McIntyre did. So it takes a while for the coaches and the players to mesh and get on the same page. Well, they have meshed, and they're on the same page because they're really playing well now. They're playing like they were preseason picked. They're playing like a top 25 team now. They did not early in if you watch every one of their films, they did not early in the season, but they are now. They're big and strong and tough, and they've got great skill. And what I think is the most important thing on offense nowadays is they have a really good quarterback, and he's playing very well. On defense, they're fairly young, but they're big and strong and tough, and they play really hard. And they've beat 4 teams in a row that I would have guessed had equal athletic ability to them.
You know, I'm looking at last year, and, really the difference in that game, you guys looked like you had that game won. They put up 21 points in the fourth quarter and walk away with a 38-34 victory. That really stung you pretty good here at Qualcomm Stadium. What do you remember that night that they took advantage of you there in the fourth quarter?
Well, there's 2 things that everybody on our team that played last year or was on the team last year should remember. Number one, I thought we played really well on defense for 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, their quarterback got hot and threw the ball, and they caught it very well. We also gave up 2 kick returns. See, no one will remember that. We gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown. They ran 1 for a touchdown, and they ran another one back to our 20-yard line. It's pretty hard to stop somebody when they get the ball 1st and 10 at your own 20 at the start of a series. And that gave them 2 of their touchdowns, 1 on a kickoff return and 1 where they started with the ball on the 20. So we did not play good defense in the fourth quarter, and we played very poor on kickoff coverage. So hopefully all our players remember that too.
Well, I would think Coach Carragher was a pretty savvy guy. He has probably taken a look at that tape, as his defensive coordinator remembers you guys pounded the ball 55 times that night for 271 yards, and Adam Moema had a 202-yard rushing game. So they're probably loading up for that big running back.
Well, I'm sure that they're going to stack the box, so to speak, and we better be able to throw it a little bit and loosen them up a little bit, or it'll be tough to run it too.
Hey, we're going to be coming back. We're going to get you the Aztec Student Athlete of the Week. Also want to remind everyone, our good friends at Quality First Real Estate, San Diego's top real estate company. They can help you buy, sell, and manage San Diego real estate. When it comes to real estate, it's always Quality First. Click QualityFirstRealEstate.com. We want to thank Quality First for being a part of the Rocky Long Show each and every Wednesday night. Back with the California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week. Final segment with the head football coach, San Diego State, Rocky Long, right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. The Rocky Long Show, John Quintero with you until 9 o'clock tonight. Coming up in hour number 2, Pat Williams, Senior Vice President of the Orlando Magic, and we'll also chat with Ron Carragher, the head football coach of San Jose State, get his thoughts on the ball game coming up on Saturday night. Again, the ball game will be heard right here on both the Mighty 1090 and our sister station, the Walrus 105.7. Kickoff at 7:34. You like those late night Saturday night games, Coach?
I like being on TV because I think it helps the program, but I think And see, now you're going to get my traditionalist. I think high school football should be Friday night. I think college football should be Saturday afternoon, and I think the pros should play on Sunday.
You know what? I've heard that once or twice from you, and I buy into that. Do you like day games or night games on Saturday?
I like day games. I mean, I don't like waiting all day to play. You know, it's even as a player, you wake up, you eat, you go to the stadium, and you play. That's the best way to play it. But the night games, if you play well and you're on TV, overall it's really good for the program.
Hey, let's get to our California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week. This week's California Bank and Trust Student Athlete of the Week is women's volleyball player Reagan Shelton. Check these numbers out, Coach. San Diego State ran its current win streak to 3 straight matches as it defeated your alma mater, New Mexico, 3-0 Saturday afternoon on the Aztec Court in Peterson Gym. Senior outside hitter Reagan Shelton led SDSU with 15 kills, a season-high 324 hitting percentage, while also recording 1 block. Late in the third set, score tied at 26 apiece. The Aztecs sealed the win with a Shelton kill as they captured the set and the match victory. Shelton, a senior originally from Amarillo, Texas, was named the 2013 preseason All-Mountain West team. Shelton is undeclared on her major, however, is interested in pursuing a career in sports photography. I would imagine you probably played a little volleyball somewhere along the line in PE class or teaching somewhere along the line, huh?
I don't remember playing much volleyball.
Now,
but
you live down by the beach now, though, don't you?
Yeah, I know.
You go out there and bump and set a little bit?
I have a daughter that was a great volleyball player and that is now a volleyball coach. So I act like I know what's going on, but I really know you only get to hit it 3 times to get it over the net. That's the only thing I really know. But she asks me questions all the time, and I just agree with her, so she thinks I know.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. Hey, I wanted to ask your thoughts on this. I mean, John Fox, a guy that went to San Diego State. In fact, when I was playing basketball at USIU, John Fox was on the coaching staff when he was first starting out with a guy named Mike Solari and Mike Shepard, a guy that actually coached at New Mexico. And there were a few other guys that went on to the National Football League. But I remember John Fox, young, aggressive, intense, but fun guy to play for. We saw that he had aortic valve surgery, I think it was yesterday or Monday, and then we saw what happened to Coach Kubiak on Sunday night, and they called it a mini stroke. And, you know, that doesn't happen usually to guys 20 and 30, but when guys are getting older, they're intense, they don't know how to let go, they work massive hours. I mean, do you think about stuff like that? When you see that happen?
I see it happen, and for a few seconds you might worry about it a little bit. But to be honest with you, that when you're a football coach, you profess all the time not to worry about little things. You know, that the most important thing is to get your butt ready to play, and whatever it takes is to get ready to play. And as a coach, you do the same thing. And it's a great profession in one sense, and it's not a great profession in another sense because you get totally involved. You're totally involved in the game, so it doesn't matter how much time you have to spend. You spend as much time as you have to if it's possible, and you work as long as you should to get it right, and you expect the same thing out of your players, and you don't expect a player to walk into a game worried about getting hurt. So you shouldn't expect the coach worrying about his health. Okay. Now, that's easy to say, and I'll probably pass out on the sidelines on Saturday. But
we're going to keep you hydrated, Coach.
Then maybe my attitude will be different, but I just think it's part of the profession.
Okay, let me throw this out at you. In devil's advocate, I think some of it's more for show, some of the extra work. I mean, these guys talk about sleeping in their office, and we've all done some bizarre things, okay, because we want to win. It all comes down to trying to win, and you want to outwork your opponent, and you want people to, especially when you're a young coach, you want to show everybody out there, man, I'm a hard worker, you know, we're going to do whatever it takes. But really, if you're putting in, if you stopped your day at the 10th hour, rather than working 11, 12, 13, 14, and maybe even more hours, is that going to make that big a difference on how your defensive end plays on Friday night? I mean, why do they have to put in 14, 15, 16 hours? Is some of it just for show?
See, my wife just said yes. It's for show. But, no, I think that some people put that kind of time in.
They don't want to go home.
No, I don't know about that. They might not want to go
I
home.
know that's not the case with you, but I guess I've been around some coaches that probably didn't want to go home.
Some people put that time in because they want to make sure they've covered every little thing. Now, I've been coaching a long time, and you know what a good game plan is that you give your players a chance to perform well, and then your players go out and execute, and they perform well, and you win. I have yet to see the best game plan in the world work unless the players can execute it. And I've actually seen a couple poor game plans work really well just because the players played so well and played so hard. It still comes down to the players playing and the players making plays. It still comes down to the players. A coach's responsibility, in my belief, the coach's responsibility is to give them a good plan, to give them a chance to be successful. And then if they're not, it's because they didn't make enough plays. But as you probably will as a coach, and if they can't execute the plan you give them, that's your fault. So you better spend a little more time and make sure you get a plan that they can execute.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now as far as having ball players on the field. I was always a big believer. You don't really need a stopwatch except if you're, want to run a drill. And normally my thought process, hey, we'll move to the next drill when you accomplish this. And, we're not going to necessarily look at our watch when we're going to go home. I think coaches should leave their watch in the clubhouse and go out there and coach. And when the job gets done, you go home. But as far as your coaching staff, let's say, okay, Saturday night you guys play at San Jose State. You take the flight home. You get home at 0:30 in the morning. You're back in the office from the time you go into the office on Sunday until the ball is kicked off the following Saturday. How many hours would you say that you or your coaching staff is putting in?
Now you're going to check my math out.
Are we talking 60 hours, 10-hour days, 12, 14-hour days? What are we talking about here?
Well, on Sundays, we're going to put in about an 8 to 10-hour day. On Mondays, we put in about an 8 to 10-hour day. On Tuesdays, we probably put a 12-hour day. And on Wednesday, we probably give in probably 12 hours. Thursday, it's probably 8. Friday, it's probably except the time we spend with the players at night getting ready for the game. Our coaches don't come in. Thursday night's the night they get to go home right after practice. They don't come in until they absolutely have to on Friday. Okay, and then when you play a night game, we got all day Saturday to relax. I don't know, is that 60 hours?
Yeah, at least 60 hours.
Okay.
But I think that's good that you get a little time because, going home, having dinner, and just let your mind relax because the last thing you want are all your coaches mentally fatigued going into a ball game. And I've seen some staffs that actually, and certain coaches that will go into a game, they put in so much time. Game night, their mind's like mush.
Yeah, I think you have to be sharp on game day. And I think there's diminishing returns. When you sit in a room and you're meeting with other coaches and you've asked the same question about 4 times and you don't have an answer, it's time to go home because you don't have the answer. You might have it the next morning, but you sure don't have it then, so you better go home.
You not only have to manage ball players and your training staff and dealing with them and the weight training. You've got to really do a good job of managing your coaching staff because, hey, we all got different lives. Everybody has different needs and wants and problems. And, hey, that's one thing I think when you watch a game on Saturday, everybody thinks that everybody's kind of the same. They're all human beings. Everybody, a defensive back, he may have broke up with his girlfriend 2 nights earlier and his mind's wandering. You never know. It's just that's why sports are so doggone interesting, but also very frustrating from time to time.
Well, it's frustrating because so many people are involved because they like sports and they like the action. They like the competition. People love to watch other people compete with each other. What most people don't understand is everything that led up to the competition. When one of our players, you brought up defensive backs, when one of our defensive backs get beat for a touchdown, people act like that's the worst thing in the world, and that's what he wanted to happen. Guess what? First of all, it's not the worst thing in the world, even though we get so involved in winning and losing. It's not the worst thing in the world, and I promise you, he worked all week long so he wouldn't get beat deep, and he did. but so did that receiver. That receiver worked all week long to try to beat him and catch the ball. And when you get so involved on one side and you root for one team, it seems to me you never give the other team credit. We started talking about that earlier in the day.
We're going to start the show with it, and we're going to finish it. Yeah. And I think that's a very good point. You got to give your opponent, number one, you got to go into the game respecting your opponent. And number two, that guy's out there trying to do as good a job as you are. And at the end of the night, hopefully you can shake hands, and one guy goes one way, the other guy goes another, and you go back to practice on Monday.
That's the way players see it. I'm not sure everybody else sees it that way.
I think that's why you and I get along so well. Coach, great job. Good luck.
Thank you.
Safe trip to San Jose. We'll look forward to having you here again next Wednesday night. And get ready for the following ball game. Very excited. Big ball game on Saturday at San Jose State. Again, live on the Mighty 1090 and 105.7 kickoff at 7:34. We'll get to the top of the hour. We'll come back. I'll stay on here at Hooley's Irish Pub and Grill for another hour. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour.